I was standing ankle-deep in brown water in a basement that smelled like a sewer had married a swamp, and they'd honeymooned in a dumpster, 60 hours without sleep. My boots had given up pretending to be waterproof somewhere around hour 30. The portable sump pump beside me was doing its thing, that low, mechanical hum that becomes the soundtrack of your life during flood season in Louisville. I watched the waterline drop inch by slow inch the way you watch a clock when you're waiting on bad news. That's when I saw it. A clothesline strung across the basement, the cheap kind, just nylon rope tied between two exposed joists, men's shirts, a pair of jeans, and a towel, teal, with an iron-on monogram, the letter M. Now, here's the thing. I bought a set of 4 of those towels at TJ Maxx 2 Christmases back, $24.99 for the set. Megan picked the color. I wanted gray. She wanted teal. She won. She always won those little fights, not because she was pushy, but because I genuinely didn't care what color our towels were. I cared that she was happy at the register. That's what love does to you. It makes you care about towels. She'd ordered iron-on monogram letters off Amazon, sat at the kitchen table with the iron and a dish towel underneath so she wouldn't scorch the wood. I watched her do it while I ate leftover chili. She pressed each letter down careful and slow, like she was sealing an envelope she meant somebody to open. I remember one of the M's came out crooked, bottom left leg sitting a little higher than the right, and she almost peeled it off to redo it, but I told her it looked fine, nobody would notice, she left it, and now one of those towels was hanging in the basement of Tyler Briggs. I couldn't see the bottom left leg from where I was standing, not in that light, but the color, the weave, the size of the letter, that was close enough to turn my stomach sideways. The pump kept humming. The water kept dropping. And I stood there in that rotten, smelling dark and felt something in my life shift. Not collapse, not yet, just shift. The way a house shifts on its foundation when the ground underneath goes soft. You can't always see it, but you feel it in the doors that won't close right anymore. Let me back up. 3 days before I found that towel, I was loading my van in the driveway at 4 in the morning. Early March. The Ohio River was rising, and everybody who'd lived in Louisville long enough knew what that meant. The TV weather people were doing that thing where they pretend to be calm, but you can see the excitement in their eyes, the kind of excitement that comes from finally having something worth talking about. Flood warnings up and down the valley. I work for Riverside Plumbing, have for 11 years. Got my own van, my own clients, my own route. Technically, I'm a subcontractor, but that's just a word that means I pay my own taxes and nobody gives me health insurance. I fix pipes, I clear drains, I pump basements. When the river comes up, I don't sleep. Megan was at the kitchen door in her robe, holding coffee. Be careful out there. Always am. Colton's got practice Thursday. I'll handle it. Okay, she handed me the thermos. Our fingers touched. There was a time that would have meant something. That morning it was just logistics. I'm not going to sit here and tell you my marriage was bad. It wasn't. It was the kind of marriage where everything works and nothing sings. We'd been together since she was 23, 11 years. We had Colton, who was 10 and already more like me than I sometimes knew what to do with. Quiet kid, watched everything, kept his own counsel. We had the house on Emerson Avenue, which I'd bought 2 years before the wedding with money I'd saved since I was 19. We had routines. We had systems. We had a refrigerator with a calendar on it that accounted for every hour of every week. What we didn't have was whatever it is that makes you reach across the couch for no reason. That had dried up so gradually I couldn't have told you when it stopped, like a slow leak behind a wall. By the time you notice the stain on the ceiling, the damage has been there for months. Tyler Briggs. I need to tell you about Tyler Briggs. 2 years before the flood, Tyler borrowed $3,000 from me. Just for a month, man, I'm between commissions. You know how it is. I did know how it was because Tyler always seemed to be between something, between commissions, between apartments, between the person he was and the person he pretended to be. He sold flooring for a regional company, traveled around to builders and contractors, glad-handed them, bought lunches, closed deals, made decent money when the deals closed. But Tyler spent like a man who believed next month's check was already in his pocket. I gave him the money because that's what you do for a friend. $3,000 cash. No paperwork, because who does paperwork with a buddy? A month went by. 2 months, I asked. He said he was working on it. 3 months. I asked again. He got quiet. 4 months. I brought it up at a cookout, not loud, just between us by the grill, and Tyler's whole face changed, got tight around the eyes, told me I was being aggressive about it, said I cared more about money than friendship, said he thought I was better than that. That's a neat trick, if you think about it. Borrow a man's money, then make him feel guilty for wanting it back. Turn the debt into a character flaw. His, not yours. I don't do confrontation well, not because I'm afraid of it, because I know what I'm capable of when I'm angry, and I made a decision a long time ago that I'd rather walk away from a man than put him through a wall. So I walked away, told Megan that night at dinner, Briggs is dead to me. She was cutting Colton's chicken into strips, didn't look up. You're better off. That was that, or so I thought. Here's a detail that didn't mean anything at the time. Megan was the one who brought Tyler into our lives. Her co-worker at Pet Falu, Denise Keller, had dated Tyler briefly, and through Denise, Tyler showed up at a birthday party, then a barbecue, then he was just around, part of the furniture. The way people drift into your orbit and you don't question it because the orbit seems natural. The flood hit Wednesday and didn't let up until Saturday. Not the worst Louisville's ever seen, but bad enough. Basements filling up across the east side, sewage backing into people's kitchens. The city put out emergency numbers and my phone didn't stop ringing. I worked 16-hour shifts, slept in the van between calls, ate gas station sandwiches and drank coffee that tasted like it had been brewed in a radiator. Wednesday night, I rerouted a sewage line for an elderly couple on Frankfurt Avenue. The woman kept trying to bring me cookies while I was waist-deep in her crawl space. Thursday, I jury-rigged a pump for a daycare center on Eastern Parkway because the real equipment wouldn't arrive until morning, and 23 kids needed somewhere to go at 7 a.m. You do this work long enough, you stop thinking about the water as an enemy. It's just physics. Water goes where gravity takes it. Your job is to give it somewhere else to go. Megan texted, "Be safe. Colton misses you. There's lasagna whenever you get home." I texted back the way I always did, 1 word, maybe 2. Okay, soon. Tell him good night. Normal, exactly normal. Or, and I only thought about this later, after everything, almost normal. There'd been something off about Megan for a couple of months by then. Little things. She'd started going to the gym at odd hours. Lost about 10 pounds, which she said was from cutting carbs, but she wasn't cutting carbs. I could see the bread in the pantry, same as always. She'd started sleeping with her phone under her pillow instead of on the nightstand. Started taking calls in the other room and coming back with this smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, like she was performing fine instead of being it. I noticed all of it. I notice everything. It's a curse of the trade. You spend your days looking for the thing that doesn't belong, but I filed it under stress. Work pressure. Something at the store. I had 100 explanations and all of them were wrong, and the right one never crossed my mind, because you don't look for rot in a beam you trust. Saturday afternoon, I was parked outside a gas station on Bardstown Road, trying to eat a ham sandwich that kept falling apart in my hands, when dispatch radioed with the next address. Barrett Avenue, I knew that address. I checked it twice on the clipboard. Tyler Briggs. I sat there with the sandwich in my lap and thought about calling dispatch, asking for a reassign. Some other guy could pump Tyler's basement. I didn't owe him a thing, less than a thing, actually, since he still owed me $3,000. But a flooded basement doesn't care about personal history. And I finish my jobs. That's not pride talking. It's just how I'm built. You start something. You see it through. So I started the van and drove to Barrett Avenue. Tyler opened the door, and there was this beat, this half second, where we both stood there like actors who'd walked on stage and forgotten the play. He looked thinner than I remembered, same salesman smile, though, even now, even standing in his own doorway with 3 inches of standing water in his basement. The smile that said, everything's fine, everything's always fine, trust me. Wade, man, didn't know they were sending you. They send whoever's available. Right, yeah, it's the basement, obviously. I figured. I went down the stairs. The smell hit first, that cocktail of mildew and sewage and wet drywall that gets into your clothes and stays for days. The water was about 4 inches deep, dark brown, with a film on top that caught the light from my headlamp. Tyler's stuff was on shelves along the walls, boxes, some tools, a weight bench that had rusted at the joints. I set up the pump, checked the drain lines, started working, and then I looked up, saw the clothesline. I've already told you about the towel. What I haven't told you is what happened inside my head when I saw it, and the honest answer is nothing for about 30 seconds, absolutely nothing. Like my brain hit a wall and just stopped. The pump hummed. The water sloshed around my boots. I stared at that teal towel with its iron on M, and my mind went completely blank. Then it started again. Slow. The way I think about everything, tracing it through like a pipe behind a wall, one connection at a time, could be a coincidence. TJ Maxx sells thousands of those towels. Plenty of women's names start with M, but combined with the color, the monogram style, the fact that I was standing in the home of a man who'd been my friend, who'd known my wife, who'd been in my house 100 times, the odds shrank. They didn't disappear, but they shrank enough to leave a taste in my mouth like copper. I didn't say a word. Finished the job. Went upstairs. Tyler was in the kitchen, leaning against the counter with a beer, looking like a man who expected something but wasn't sure what. Basement'll dry out in a couple days, I said. Check the walls for mold in about a week. If you see black spots, call the office. Tyler nodded, then he shifted his weight. Listen, Wade, about the $3,000, forget about the money. I said it flat. Not generous, not forgiving, just forget it. The way you'd tell someone to stop picking at a scab because you've just noticed the bone underneath. He blinked. Really? I mean, that's... I said forget it. I walked out, got in the van, sat there. The engine was off. The street was quiet. Rain had stopped for the first time in 4 days, and there was that weird post-storm light, everything gray and sharp at the same time. I hit the dashboard with my palm, once, hard enough to feel it up through my shoulder. Then I started the engine and drove to the next call. I didn't go home for 2 more days. Before, it was because of the work. Now it was because I wasn't ready to look at her face and know what I might know. Monday evening, day 6. The flood had receded. Louisville was doing what Louisville does after high water, assessing damage, filing insurance claims, hosing off porches. I pulled into the driveway and sat in the van for 10 minutes before I went inside. First thing I did wasn't shower. I went to the hall closet where we kept the linen, counted the teal towels. We bought 4. There were 3. Could mean anything. Towels go missing. They end up in the wrong bag at the laundromat. A kid takes one to a sleepover. I stood in the hallway with 3 towels on the shelf and a hole where the 4th should have been, and I told myself it could mean anything. Then I showered. 20 minutes, hands flat against the tile, water running over my head and down my back, not thinking, just standing there, letting the heat work into my muscles, trying to figure out how to say the thing I was about to say. Megan hugged me when I came out. I stood there with my arms at my sides. She pulled back, looked at my face. "You okay? You look tired. You've been going nonstop. Sit down. I'll heat up. I'm fine," she noticed. I could see her noticing, but she filed it under exhaustion, which was reasonable, which was what I would have done too if I didn't have a missing towel and a rearranged world. Colton was in bed by 9. I waited until I heard his breathing go slow and even through the door. Then I went to the kitchen. I took one of the remaining teal towels from the closet, put it on the counter. Megan was in the doorway in her pajamas, holding her phone. She looked at the towel, looked at me. "Wade, sit down." She sat. I pulled out the other chair, sat across from her. The kitchen light was that harsh overhead fluorescent that makes everyone look 10 years older. I could hear the refrigerator humming, the faucet dripping. I'd been meaning to replace that cartridge for 3 weeks. Saturday. Dispatch sent me to Tyler's house. Barrett Avenue, his basement was flooded. Her face didn't change yet. She was still in the place where this was a normal conversation. I pumped his basement. While I was down there, I saw a clothesline, and on the clothesline was a teal towel with an iron-on M. Same color as this, same letter, same style. I tapped the towel on the counter. "We bought 4 of these. There are 3 in the closet. I just counted." Now her face changed. Not all at once. It was like watching water find a crack. The color went first, then the eyes, then the mouth. She didn't speak right away. I watched her brain spin. I could almost see the gears turning, the search for an exit. She found one. That's probably one I gave Denise. She liked them and Megan. I'm serious. I gave her one months ago. Denise dated Tyler for about 5 minutes 2 years ago. You think she's leaving monogram towels at his place? She stopped. Her mouth opened and closed. Then she tried another door. "It could be anyone's. TJ Maxx sells." "I know what TJ Maxx sells. I also know you made 4 towels, and there are 3 in the closet, and the missing one is hanging in a basement on Barrett Avenue. You want to keep going, or do you want to tell me the truth?" Something behind her eyes just gave up. Not all at once. It was like watching a wall lean and lean and lean, and then the mortar lets go, and the whole thing comes down quiet. She looked at the towel. She looked at her hands. She looked at the table. Long silence, long enough for the faucet to drip 6 or 7 times. "How long?" I asked. 18 months. No tears yet, just the words, flat and small, like she'd dropped them on the floor and they'd broken. I nodded, and then I did the math out loud because I needed her to hear it. 18 months. I cut Tyler off 2 years ago, over the 3,000, so 6 months after the blow-up, give or take. You went to him, or he came to you. Wade, every time I sat at this table, every time I said that man stole from me, you sat right there, right in that chair, and you knew you were sleeping with him. I kept my voice even, level. The same voice I use when I'm explaining to a homeowner that their entire main line needs to be replaced. You let me be angry about the money because that was easier than the truth. Now she was crying, quietly. Not the big dramatic kind, the kind that just leaks out because there's nowhere else for it to go. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. It just It happened, and then it kept happening, and I kept telling myself I'd stop, but you didn't. No. I picked up the towel, folded it, set it back on the counter, neat as a display in a store. Then I got up and went to Colton's room and lay down on the floor beside his bed with a pillow off the couch and a blanket from the hall closet. I didn't sleep, but I was quiet about it. Here's what people don't understand about finding out something like this. The affair itself is almost secondary. What eats you alive is the reconstruction. You go back through every memory, every conversation, every late night at the store and dinner with Denise, and you re-examine it. You hold it up to the new light. And some of those memories change completely. They were never what you thought they were. The next few days, I didn't leave the house, didn't kick Megan out. It's my house, bought and paid for before we ever walked down an aisle. But I stopped talking to her about anything that wasn't about Colton. We moved around each other like two people in a hospital hallway, careful, quiet, eyes down. And I started thinking, not about the affair exactly, about the shape of it. How did Megan and Tyler reconnect after I cut him off? Through who? Where did they meet? Who knew? Things that hadn't added up before suddenly did. Tyler borrowed $3,000. Tyler made decent money. Tyler wasn't broke. He was careless, sure, but not broke. So why borrow that money and then refuse to pay it back? Why escalate the fight? I replayed that conversation by the grill. Me bringing it up calmly, Tyler going sharp and defensive, turning it into this thing about respect and friendship and who I was as a man. He escalated, not me. I just wanted my money back. After the friendship ended, Megan never once suggested I patch things up. Never said, maybe you should call Tyler. You guys were close. She was relieved. At the time, I thought she just didn't like seeing me upset. Now I understood. She was relieved because the last obstacle was gone. I wasn't going to Tyler's house anymore. I wasn't going to notice anything. I was out of the way. That realization that the $3,000 wasn't a loan at all, that it was a purchase, that's the one that kept me up at night lying on Colton's floor, staring at the glow-in-the-dark stars we'd stuck on his ceiling when he was 6. Tyler bought my absence, $3,000, and he got a clear field. Friday, 1 week since I stood in that basement, I called my dad. Hank Pickett lives in Shelbyville, 30 minutes east. Retired electrician. Widowed 6 years. He's 64 and built like a mailbox, short, square, immovable. We don't talk about feelings. We talk about facts, which is why I called him. We met at Waffle House because that's where we always meet. He was already in a booth with black coffee when I walked in, looked at my face, and didn't say good morning. All right, let's have it. I told him everything. The flood, the towel, the missing fourth from the closet, the 18 months, and then I told him my theory about the $3,000, that Tyler engineered the blow-up to get me out of the picture. Dad listened the way he always does, still, eyes steady, no interrupting, stirred his coffee even though there was nothing in it to stir. When I finished, he was quiet for a while. So Tyler borrowed $3,000, but did he borrow it or did he take it knowing you'd cut him off? That's what I'm saying. There's a difference between a man who can't pay and a man who won't pay. A man who won't pay is buying something. What did he buy? Distance. Distance from what? From me. So I wouldn't see what was happening. Dad nodded, took a sip of coffee, set it down. Then the affair didn't start 6 months after the blow-up. It started before. The money was the exit strategy. He picked that fight on purpose, Wade. He knew your pride would do the rest. I sat there with my hands around my own coffee cup and felt something click into place, the way a fitting clicks when you've got it threaded right. Tyler didn't stumble into an affair with my wife. He ran a play. Befriend the husband. Get close to the wife. Manufacture a reason for the husband to walk away. Then move in. The 18 months Megan told me, that was probably a lie, or at least a trimmed version. The real number was longer. Had to be. "So, what are you going to do?" Dad asked. "I don't know yet." "Fair enough," he flagged the waitress. "But when you figure it out, do it clean. Don't give him anything he can use against you." The next week, I did something that surprised even me. I didn't confront Tyler, didn't call a lawyer. I went to Pet Value on Bardstown Road and asked to speak with Denise Keller. Denise was behind the register when I walked in. She saw me and her face tightened. Not panic, not yet, but the edge of it. The face of someone doing quick math. I asked if we could talk. She said she was on break in 10 minutes. We went to her car in the parking lot. She sat in the driver's seat. I stood outside with the door open, leaning on the roof. "What's going on, Wade? Is Megan okay?" "You tell me. What do you mean?" "I know about Megan and Tyler, Denise." She stared straight through the windshield, didn't blink. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Yeah, you do. Tyler and Megan aren't even. You guys stopped talking to Tyler 2 years ago. Why would—" Megan told me herself. 3 nights ago, at our kitchen table, 18 months. That stopped her. She turned and looked at me for the first time since we'd sat down. Searching my face for the bluff, not finding one. "She told you. She told me. Now I need to know what you know, because I think you know more than she gave me." Denise's hands went to the steering wheel. She gripped it at 10 and 2 like she was about to drive away from the conversation. I watched something move behind her eyes, the calculation of loyalties, of debts, of what she owed Megan and what she owed herself. "I told her to end it," she said finally, quiet. "I told her 100 times. When did you find out?" "About a year ago. She told me she was a wreck, not about guilt, not at first. About being in over her head. I told her she had to stop. She said she would." Denise wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "She didn't. Who else knows?" "Nobody, just me." "I swear, Wade, I almost called you twice. I had your number up on my phone, and I couldn't press the button. She was my friend, and I kept thinking if she just ended it. I need you to tell me everything she said about Tyler, everything." Denise looked at her steering wheel again, took a long breath. Then the dam broke, not dramatic, not sobbing, just a steady pour of everything she'd been holding for 12 months. She told me Tyler had been married before. His ex-wife, Laura, lives in Lexington. And according to what Megan had confided during one of their late shifts at the store, the reason Laura left Tyler was the same thing. Tyler had done this before. Different city, different couple, same method. Befriended the husband, slept with the wife. Laura found out and divorced him. He moved to Louisville and started over. I stood there in the Pet Value parking lot with cars pulling in and out and some kid pushing a cart full of dog food past us, and I felt my understanding of Tyler Briggs rearrange itself completely. This wasn't a weak man who fell into something. This was a man who ran a playbook. "One more thing," Denise said. She wasn't looking at me. "About 2 months ago, Megan saw texts on Tyler's phone from another woman. She confronted him. He told her it was nothing. And she believed him. She wanted to, but she's been a mess since, losing weight, can't focus at work." I thanked Denise, got in my van, sat there for a while. Megan was being played too, not that it excused a single thing she'd done, but it meant that while she was destroying our marriage for this man, he was already shopping for the next one. I found Laura Briggs 6 days later, Tyler's ex-wife. Lexington, an hour east on a 64. I got her address through a buddy who does skip tracing for a collections agency. Called in a favor, didn't explain why. Saturday morning, I drove out there. Nice little house in a subdivision off Richmond Road. Tidy yard, wind chimes on the porch. She opened the door about 3 inches, chain still on. Dark-haired woman, mid-30s. Laura Briggs. Who's asking? My name's Wade Pickett. I'm from Louisville. I was a friend of your ex-husband's. Then we don't have anything to talk about. She started to close the door. I think he did the same thing to me that he did to Doug and Karen Price. The door stopped. Through the 3-inch gap, I watched her face change. That name, Doug Price, was a key that fit a lock she thought she'd thrown away. Where did you hear that name? From someone Tyler told. My wife. She's been sleeping with him, 1.5 years at least. Same thing he did in Lexington. Befriend the husband, borrow money, pick a fight, move in on the wife. I'm trying to understand what I'm dealing with. She studied me through the crack. A long time. Then, you have ID? I pulled out my wallet, driver's license. She read it, looked at my face, looked at the license again. Then she closed the door. I heard the chain slide. It opened all the way. I'm not doing this in the doorway. Come in, but you've got 20 minutes. She didn't make coffee, didn't offer a seat, stood in her kitchen with her arms crossed and made me talk first. I gave her the whole thing, the towel, the confrontation, the missing fourth from the linen closet, the timeline. She listened the way you listen to a weather report for a town you used to live in, with grim, distant recognition. When I finished, she uncrossed her arms and sat down at the table. I took that as permission and sat across from her. Doug and Karen Price, she said. Tyler befriended Doug, beers after work, pick-up basketball, the whole routine. Then he borrowed $2,000 from Doug, picked a fight when Doug asked for it back, cut ties, started sleeping with Karen. Same playbook. Identical. I found out because Karen's sister told me. She'd seen them at a restaurant in Frankfurt, thought I should know. Laura wrapped both hands around nothing on the table, an old habit, I guessed, the ghost of a coffee mug. I confronted Tyler, want to know what he said. That you were paranoid. She almost smiled. Not quite. Paranoid and controlling. Those were his words. Said I was suffocating him. I spent 3 months in therapy wondering if I was crazy before I finally filed. And he didn't fight the divorce. Didn't even hire a lawyer, just signed everything, because he was done. I wasn't useful anymore. Louisville was next. She got up, went to a desk in the living room, came back with a manila folder. Old printouts, screenshots of text messages between Tyler and Karen Price. The timestamps went back months before the money fight with Doug. I kept these because my therapist told me to, for the days when I'd start doubting myself, when I'd start thinking maybe I imagined the whole thing. She set the folder on the table but kept her hand on it. You can look. You can't take them. I read through them, the love bombing, the manufactured crises, the careful isolation of the husband. My hands were steady. My insides were not. He'll do it again, Laura said. He's probably already setting up the next one. You can divorce your wife and walk away, and it won't matter. He'll find another couple. I drove home in silence. No radio, just the highway and the sound of my own breathing. Somewhere past Frankfurt, I pulled off at a rest stop and sat in the parking lot for 20 minutes. Not because I needed to stop, because I needed to think about what I was becoming. See, there's a version of this where I go home and pour a drink and feel sorry for myself and let Tyler Briggs drive off into whatever sunset he's got planned. There's a version where I hit him so hard they have to wire his jaw shut and I spend a night in county and he presses charges and I'm the bad guy in the police report. There's a version where I do nothing and the anger eats me from the inside out like a pipe that corrodes one winter at a time. until the whole system fails and you're standing in 3 inches of your own sewage, wondering how it got so bad. I didn't want any of those versions. I wanted the version where the truth did the work, where I didn't have to swing or scream or scheme, where all I had to do was stop keeping Tyler's secrets for him, because that's what silence is when you know what a man is and you don't say anything. It's free labor, and I was done working for Tyler Briggs. I started the van and got back on I-64. I wasn't planning to hit Tyler. I wasn't planning anything violent. Violence is fast and hot, and it burns out. What I was planning was slower than that. 3.5 weeks after the flood, I went to Tyler's house. He opened the door, and I could see he'd been expecting this. Megan had told him I knew, of course she had, and he'd had weeks to prepare. He was leaning in the doorframe with this look on his face, this ready look, like a man who's rehearsed his lines. I think he was expecting me to throw a punch. I think he wanted me to. A fist fight is simple. He calls the cops, gets a restraining order, tells everyone I'm unstable. I become the villain, and he becomes the victim. That's the play. I put my hands in my jacket pockets. You ran this same thing in Lexington, I said, conversational, like I was telling him about the weather. Doug and Karen Price. You borrowed money, started a fight, slept with the wife. Your ex-wife told me everything. She kept the text messages. The rehearsed look fell off his face like paint off a wet wall. I'm not going to hit you. I'm not going to threaten you. I'm going to divorce my wife, and I'm going to make sure every person who knows your name knows what you do. Not because I'm angry, because you'll do it again. You're probably already doing it. He opened his mouth, closed it. You thought you bought my absence for $3,000. That was the cheapest thing you ever did. I'm going to cost you everything. I turned around and walked back to my van. In the rearview mirror, he was still standing in the doorway. Smaller than I remembered. That's the thing about men like Tyler. They take up a lot of space until suddenly they don't. I hired a divorce attorney named Patricia Dunn, sharp woman, office in a converted Victorian on 3rd Street. I came in with a folder, the timeline, Megan's own admission, every date I could reconstruct. Patricia looked through it like a mechanic diagnosing an engine. Quick, efficient, no wasted motion. She filed. Megan was served at Pet Value on a Tuesday afternoon. I didn't plan for it to happen at her work, but I didn't stop it either. Then came the part I'd been dreading. Colton, my boy. We sat him down on a Sunday, living room. Megan and I on opposite ends of the couch, Colton in the armchair across from us, the big blue one he'd claimed as his own when he was 5. He sat with his hands between his knees and his eyes going back and forth between us like he was watching a slow tennis match. Buddy, I said, your mom and I are going to live in different places for a while. He didn't cry. He looked at Megan, then at me. Then he asked one question. Is it because of Tyler? The room went vacuum silent. Megan made a sound like someone had stepped on her chest. Kids know. That's the thing nobody tells you. They hear the phone calls you take in the other room. They notice when you come home and something's different. Different perfume, different energy, a laugh that doesn't match. Colton was 10. He was my son. He watched everything and said nothing, same as me. What happens between your mom and me is between us, I said. It's not about you. You didn't cause this. You hear me? He nodded. You and me, we're solid. That doesn't change. Ever. He nodded again. Then, can I go outside? Yeah, buddy, go ahead. He went out the back door. I heard the thump of the baseball hitting the rebounder net I'd set up for him along the fence. Over and over and over, thump, thump, thump. Megan was sobbing at the other end of the couch. I sat there and listened to my son throw baseballs and my wife cry, and I didn't feel anything at all. Not anger, not satisfaction, just a wide, flat nothing, like a field after it's been plowed and the old crop is gone, but nothing new has come up yet. I didn't put anything online, didn't write a single post. Didn't make a scene at a bar or show up at Tyler's work. What I did was simpler and worse. I told the truth, in person, face to face, one conversation at a time. I met with our mutual friends, couples we'd known for years, guys I worked with. I was factual, no drama, no embellishment, no adjectives that didn't belong. Megan had an affair with Tyler Briggs, 18 months, probably longer. Tyler ran the same thing before in Lexington, different couple, same method. I wanted you to hear it from me. That was it. I answered questions if they had them. I didn't badmouth Megan beyond the facts. I didn't need to. The facts were enough. Louisville's a big city that runs on small-town mechanics. The plumbing trade, the contractor trade, the building supply network, everybody knows everybody within 2 or 3 handshakes. Tyler sold flooring to builders. Those builders hired plumbers. Those plumbers knew me. Within a month, every contractor in the East End had heard some version of the story. Not gossip, just information traveling the way information travels when it's true, and people pass it along because they think others should know. Here's where it got interesting. A builder named Frank Doyle, big guy, ran a remodeling company in St. Matthews. One of Tyler's better clients called me one afternoon. We'd done work on some of Frank's projects. Wade, I need to tell you something. About 2 months ago, Tyler started getting real friendly with my wife at a company barbecue. Texts afterward. We should grab coffee sometime. You're so easy to talk to. That kind of thing. My wife showed me. She thought he was just being weird. I told him to knock it off. He backed down. Frank? Yeah? He wasn't being weird. He was running the play. Silence on the line, then a long, slow exhale. That son of a... I'm pulling my contracts, Wade, today. Every single one. My guys can find another flooring rep. And he did. 6 figures in annual business. Gone overnight. Tyler's boss started asking questions. When your biggest client walks and won't return calls, somebody wants to know why. Frank didn't file a complaint or write a letter. He didn't have to. When Tyler's boss called to ask what happened, Frank told him straight, "Your sales rep was texting my wife. Ask him about it. And while you're at it, ask him why Wade Pickett's marriage just ended." That's all it took. The boss didn't need a formal grievance. He needed to understand why money was walking out the door. And once he understood, Tyler became the most expensive employee on the roster, not for what they paid him, but for what he was costing them. That's the thing about a man like Tyler. He relied on isolation. He needed his targets to never compare notes. My wife never talked to Laura in Lexington. Laura never talked to Karen Price's sister. Doug Price never talked to me. Tyler operated in the gaps between people. All I did was close the gaps. Megan moved out in week 8, apartment on Poplar Level, 1 bedroom. I know from Colton, who spent every other weekend with her, though he made it clear he preferred being home, that she tried calling Tyler after she moved out multiple times. He didn't answer. Then he blocked her number. The man she'd blown up her life for, the man she'd spent 18 months sneaking around with, lying for, losing sleep over, he shut her out the moment she became inconvenient. Laura Briggs told me that would happen, and she was right. To Tyler, Megan was never a person. She was a chapter, and the chapter was over. I didn't gloat about that. I felt a dull, heavy kind of sad. Not for what I'd lost, but for what had never really been there. Megan and I had loved each other once. Real love, the kind that makes you argue about towel colors in a TJ Maxx, and somewhere along the way it had thinned out until there was nothing underneath, and neither of us had the guts to say so. She filled the empty space with Tyler. I filled it with work. Neither of us fixed anything. The court gave me the house, premarital property, my savings, my name on the deed. Custody was shared, but Colton's preference carried weight. He was 10, old enough that the judge asked him directly in chambers, and Colton said what he'd been saying at home. He wanted to stay in the house on Emerson with me. Megan got every other weekend and Wednesdays. She didn't fight it. I think by that point she was too tired to fight anything. I ran into Denise Keller at a gas station about 2 weeks after the custody was settled. She was filling up her car, and I was filling up the van, and we pretended not to see each other for about 30 seconds before she walked over. For what it's worth, she said, Megan's a wreck. She transferred to the Pet Value in Jeffersontown. Nobody at our store could look at her the same after the papers got served. That's between her and them. Denise nodded, looked at her shoes. She tried to go to Tyler after she moved out, called him maybe 20, 30 times. He blocked her. She looked up at me. You already knew that. Yeah. She's starting to understand what he is, that she was just, I know what she was to him. We stood there by the pumps, traffic going by on Bardstown Road, the smell of gasoline and autumn. Are you doing okay? She asked. I'm doing. That was honest. I wasn't good. I wasn't bad. I was doing. Getting up, going to work, making Colton breakfast, fixing pipes, the motions of a life. Some days the motions felt like enough. Some days they didn't. Tyler's world got small fast. The lost contracts were first. Frank Doyle wasn't the only builder who pulled business. Once the story circulated through the contractor network, guys who'd been friendly with Tyler started keeping their distance. Not out of moral outrage, out of self-preservation. Nobody wants a sales rep whose personal life costs them clients. Then Laura got involved. On her own, I didn't ask her to. She'd spent 4 years being the only person who knew what Tyler was, and now that the silence was broken, she wanted it to stay broken. She tracked down 2 women Tyler had dated after their divorce. Both of them had lent him money, small amounts, $500 here, $800 there. Same pattern, borrow, bond, disappear. She connected them with each other, the picture filled in. Tyler's employer put him on a performance improvement plan, and 3 weeks later, after 2 more builders quietly pulled their accounts, they let him go. The company didn't care about his love life. They cared about the balance sheet. And Tyler Briggs had become a line item nobody wanted to explain. He put the Barrett Avenue house up for sale in month 4. I heard it from Joel Pratt, a guy I worked with at Riverside. Joel had driven past and seen the sign in the yard. He's running, Joel said. We were eating lunch in my van outside a job site on Brownsboro Road. Yeah. Where? Doesn't matter. He'll try the same thing wherever he goes. Difference is now there's a trail. Joel chewed his sandwich and thought about that. You know, he said, I worked a job on Barrett 2 years ago, replaced a sump pump for the guy next door. Tyler was out front washing his car, waved at me, friendly as could be, came over, asked about my work, complimented my van. I remember thinking, what a nice guy. Everybody thinks that. That's the scariest part. It was. Because Tyler didn't look like what he was. He looked like a guy who washed his car on Saturday mornings and waved at the neighbors. That was the whole trick, and it worked until somebody pulled back the siding and showed the damage underneath. That was true. Laura had made sure of it. Tyler had operated in darkness for years. The lights were on. Late summer, another flood, smaller this time, just a hard week of rain and some backed-up storm drains. Routine. I was back on emergency calls, working through the list. Dispatch put Barrett Avenue on my sheet. Tyler's old house, new owners. I clicked the radio. I'll take Barrett. Drove there. Young couple, first house. The guy met me at the door, nervous, the way first-time homeowners get when something goes wrong, like the house had personally betrayed him. "It's just a couple inches," I told him. "Happens in this part of town. Let me take a look." Went down to the basement. The clothesline was gone. New owners had cleaned the place out, put up fresh drywall, laid rubber mats on the floor. I set up the pump, checked the drain lines, showed the kid where to watch for mold. His wife brought me coffee. I took it, stood in the kitchen that used to be Tyler Briggs' kitchen, and drank it. Good coffee. The kid had one of those pour-over setups. "You guys got a nice place here," I said. "Thanks." "We love it. Got a good deal on it, actually. Previous owner was in a hurry to sell." "That happens sometimes." I finished the job, wrote up the work order, got in the van, and drove to the next call. October, Fall League. Colton was pitching. The kid had gotten better over the summer, not just his arm, his composure. He'd stand on that mound and stare down the batter with this look that was so much like looking in a mirror it made my chest hurt. Calm, patient, waiting for the right moment to throw. I sat in a folding chair behind the backstop, Dad next to me. He'd driven in from Shelbyville, same as he did for every game. We had a cooler between us with water bottles and a bag of sunflower seeds, and we didn't say much because we didn't need to. Megan was in the bleachers on the other side. She came to every game. We nodded to each other across the diamond. Colton threw 3 innings, gave up 1 hit, struck out 5. After the game, he ran over, still in his cleats, face red from the sun. "Dad, can we get ice cream?" We went to the Dairy Queen on Shelbyville Road. Sat on the tailgate of my truck. Colton had a blizzard. I had a plain vanilla cone because I'm boring and I've made peace with it. He swung his legs against the tailgate, eating his ice cream, watching the cars go by. Then he looked up at me. "Dad, are you okay now?" I thought about it, didn't answer fast. He knows I don't answer fast. He waited. "Getting there, buddy." He nodded, went back to his blizzard, and we sat there on the tailgate in the October sun, and the ice cream dripped down my hand, and I didn't wipe it off right away because I was busy just sitting there with my son, and that was enough.